Hello friends, this is ex-Major Manish Bhatnagar. Welcome to video number 2 of the Science Beyond channel. As promised, we deliver you another original research linking ultra-modern science with the ancient Sanatan wisdom. In this video, we would mainly talk about the aspects arising out of the moon soft landing missions and their high failure rates. Namely, whether the gravitational constant big G is universal or otherwise. The influence thrown by 1/6 gravity of the moon as compared to that of the Earth has also different time zones as suggested by the theory of relativity. Besides these aspects, we would also address one very big question: whether the perturbation theory really works. Lastly, in view of these relevant aspects, whether the reason for high failure rate of moon soft landing missions finds genesis in its gravity. If yes, then due to which particular aspect of it? On September the 13th, 1959, Luna 2 mission of the former USSR was the first man-made object to land on the surface of the moon. Luna 9 and Luna 13 missions had landed 7 years thereafter in the year 1966. However, in the current cycle of human civilization, USA is the only nation which has successfully accomplished manned moon soft landing missions. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first astronauts to land on the moon's surface on July 20th, 1969 and then return safely to the Earth as part of the USA's Apollo 11 mission. Between 1969 and December 1972, Apollo 12, 14, 15, 16 and 17 missions also accomplished the same. However, besides these 6 missions, there is no other manned landing on the moon's surface. The number of unplanned crash landings on the moon's surface is indeed huge. The researchers and investigators connected with the moon soft landing missions believe that if due to any reasons, including the system degradations, if corrections to the flight parameters could not be applied to the moon orbiters, then they are unable to maintain the orbit, ultimately meeting the fate of unplanned crash landing on the moon's surface in due course of time. They attribute the same to the gravitational anomalies occasioned by the mass concentrations or mass counts present below the moon's surface, which they believe got embedded below the surface at varied depths as large impacting bodies with varied compositions during the early molten moon stage. If what they believe is true, then the same should also apply to the gravitation of other planets, natural satellites and entities in the solar system, since they all have had a common early past of molten mass, hot lava and cosmic bodies from outside impacting them in set state and getting embedded. Besides the external objects, internal tectonic movement and volcanoes carrying out mass redistribution would also have led to the creation of mass cones. It may be inferred that presence of mass cones would be a general phenomena amongst all the solid cosmic entities of the day. Though, however, homogeneous mixing during the retarded cooling down would have had some mitigating effects. Yet, things are indefinite, irregular, and without any consistent patterns. If at all mass cones are the sole source of gravitational anomalies on the moon, then it may be deduced that the same would also be present on other solid planets, including our own Earth, though, however, in trivially varied degrees owing to the presence of different buffers such as atmosphere, liquid water, etc. Why is it then orbiters in the low moon orbit, that is up to 100 km altitude, experience irregular, noticeable gravitational pull in different directions? The problem of gravitational anomalies becomes complex when we have to soft land a space vehicle on the surface of the moon, and really tricky if we had to protect the lives of astronauts on board any of them. The bigger challenge in case of moon soft landings is that of controlling the vertical descent velocity rather than landing site accuracy. The percentage of successful moon soft landings so far is a mere 37. A moon soft landing mission basically incorporates one larger orbiter vehicle which carries the astronauts and the moon lander vehicle to the moon orbit and back to the Earth. It launches the moon lander, also carrying astronauts in case of manned soft landing missions, and assist the landing and takeoff from the moon's surface. The moon lander has detachable stages for descent to moon surface and takeoff therefrom. The lander could be piloted by onboard astronauts or computers. Pre-fed flight parameters and controls remain active in either of the situations. The astronauts could take over the flight's control from autopilot at any stage, and eventually this had to be done from the first manned moon soft landing to the last. From the first one, that is Apollo 11, to the last one, that is Apollo 17, the autopilot had been unable to maintain the flight parameters of safe landing and landing site adherence. Not a single manned moon soft landing mission could totally succeed with autopilot or computer-controlled flight and landing. When Apollo 11 autopilot took it miles off the selected site, the controls were taken over by crew on board who landed it safely. When the landing was finally accomplished, there was just 11 seconds of fuel left. Remaining 5 manned moon soft landing missions also encountered a similar experience and had to be piloted manually when the autopilot failed to adhere to the flight parameters, as also was observed taking the lander off the planned landing site. This had been the experience despite there being no major equipment failure which could adversely affect the safe planned landing. Apollo 13 was the sole mission which witnessed major equipment failure in the form of oxygen tank explosion and had to abort the mission in the preliminary stages itself. The experience of moon soft landing missions throw a clear position that no manned moon soft landing could be successful with autopilot or computer controlled flights, despite the fact that flight control software was refined and upgraded further, incorporating the desired corrections on the basis of such previous experiences. Another important aspect to be borne in mind while evaluating moon soft landings is higher impact speed parameters of the unmanned moon soft landing missions as compared to the manned ones. Despite a much higher tolerance speed at impact, even the unmanned moon soft landing missions have had a low success rate of 37% with auto or remotely controlled flights. In the case of manned ones, the success rate is untested or 0%, since none could be achieved with totally autopilot controls. Don't worry, we are not going to discuss the rocket science behind the moon soft landing missions. However, through the said experiences, we are going to attempt discerning the unsolved mysteries behind how the cosmos works. Before attempting the manned moon soft landings, USA had studied the gravity of moon through its moon orbiter missions between 1966 and 67. The observed gravity had revealed anomalies. However, it does not stand corroborated till date if a repeat of these very gravitational anomalies were returned again for the given spots subsequently until 1977, when observed by the satellites left behind by Apollo 16 and 17 missions, or even later ones in 2011 and 2012 by Grail A and B satellites observations. The comparison of gravity maps so drawn at different times seems to have not been made public for reasons unknown. Well, according to my research, the gravitational anomalies are more attributable to the dynamic, infinite, ever-changing interstate distances and angular placement combinations of natural satellites, planets, sun, and the galactic giants. The research stands discussed in detail in Volume 1 of my book, Cosmos and the Divinity. The belief of Western researchers that the gravitational anomalies recorded by them on the moon are solely due to the mascons is erroneous. The real reason behind Moon's significant gravitational anomalies is that it is far less massive than mass of the Sun, Earth, and other planets in the solar system. As also, Moon rotates around its axis at a much lower pace. Owing to its low mass and lower angular momentum, it not only wobbles, but its orbital speed also much varies. Without complicating things and by applying simple logic, we could very well discern whether the frugal mass cones of the moon would be enough to cause the significant gravitational anomalies, or the overwhelmingly larger gravitational influences exerted by the innumerable angular and distance combinations of the disproportionately larger bodies in proximity, such as the Earth, other planets, Sun, and ultimately the galactic influences. It is common knowledge that any object situated within the gravitational zone and atmosphere of a host body would suffer the same gravitational experiences, whether being occasioned from within the host body or exerted from outside. Before attempting the soft landings, the moon orbiters of USA had recorded gravitational anomalies of the moon in the years 1966 and 67. However, they were erroneously believed to be permanent, non-dynamic, utterly local to the site anomalies and occasioned due to the mass cones assumingly located below the moon's surface. Obviously, the flight computers were programmed under the belief that the gravitational anomalies were permanent and site-specific, which led to the computer-controlled flights going way out of the planned parameters. The saving grace, however, was that each of the Apollo moon soft landing was ultimately flown and executed by the flight crew on board, rather than the autopilot or computer-controlled flight. The utterly good news is that the crew succeeded each time. Whether mass cones are the sole reasons behind observed gravitational anomalies of the moon or the cosmic perturbations, or a mixed effect of the two, could have been discerned by observing and recording the gravity of anomalous spots at different times. However, no probe or research of the Western methodology indulged in this deep research. They had the gravity maps of the moon at different time periods. Firstly, those of 1966 and 67 moon orbiters. Secondly, of satellites left behind by Apollo 16 and 17 missions till 1977. And lastly, recent ones of the year 2011 and 12 by Grail A and B satellites. Either they did not compare the data of same spots for consistencies or otherwise, or the same not made public by default or design. Unlike the Earth, Moon does not have liquid water or molten inner core, which could occasion gravity anomalies to be significantly dynamic. Anomalies at Moon ought to have been static if solely occasioned by mass cones. It would again be a simple deduction that if the gravity anomalies of the Moon were dynamic, then it is the cosmic perturbations, or at least a mix of the two, rather than the mass cones alone that occasioned them. The experiences of the Moon's soft landing missions are also putting question mark on the universality of the gravitational constant, the big G. The deductions are that the gravity experience of any natural satellite, planet or celestial body is to be calculated not only by its own individual mass but also significantly by the cosmic perturbations. The gravitational constant does not one bit incorporate the multi-body problems. At best, its mathematical value and deduction somewhat cater for two or a few body problems. It does not at all incorporate the infinite multi-body hierarchy of satellite, planet, sun, galactic placements and alignments. The universality of Big G is thus a hoax, since there is no place or entity in the entire cosmos whose gravity and time zones are not influenced by the cosmic perturbations. The lunar gravity maps recorded by the 1966-67 moon orbiters would have been helpful in manned moon soft landing missions. However, despite incorporation of all relevant factors, the successful landings could be accomplished by the onboard crew rather than auto land or computer flying, as also the fact that Moon does not have atmospheric factors, crosswind, etc., so as to restrict the auto land parameters as it happens in the case of the Earth with its complex atmosphere. Also, the onboard crew of the moon landers was mostly selected from naval aviation pilots owing to their vast experience in near vertical landings over the floating platforms. Instead of dwelling into the rocket science behind the moon soft landings, we would rather discuss the gravity aspects of it. Though, before we part with the topic, would tender humble suggestions for the upcoming moon soft landing mission Chandrayaan-3 of Bharat. It would be advisable that flight controls of the moon lander be real-time and without communication time lag, whether the same are controlled by onboard computers or remotely piloted. The lander flight controls would be safer in the hands of helicopter pilots or those with experience in vertical landings. It may be appropriate to remark that each moon soft landing is more of a standalone landing rather than the one planned with previous flight parameters and flight data to its touchdown. With this, we get back to the aspects connected with the working of the cosmos. Typical gravity of the moon, which according to my research varies with time in cyclic manner, exhibits and strongly evidences mutual influences of the cosmic entities, working of cosmic perturbations and interconnectedness of everything in the cosmos. It seems Western science and methodology never quite attempted comprehending the same. It is for this reason that despite their success with moon landing missions, they could not draw the lessons thrown by the same on cosmic perturbations, mutual reflections, and aspects of angular placements and linear distances. Not much different from immature new blood just entering any arena. In contrast to the discerning faculties of the Western methodology, the ancient knowledge system of the Sanatan linked the moon with speed and change and exhibited its motions in the sky as the most influential mechanism affecting elements and experiences of human life. In Sanatan practices, the influences of the moon varied much, depending on which constellation, as seen from the Earth, it occupied and planets it conjoined or cohabited, which the Western cosmology may now realize to be working as cosmic perturbations. Sanatan's calendar is moon-based, which incorporates its ever-changing position with factors that influence the life on the Earth. The calendar is in day-to-day use since times immemorial. It fully and accurately describes Moon's 29 days orbital period, day and nights, about which the Western science learnt only lately, just a couple of centuries before. The ancient living wisdom of the Sanatan has described the concepts of gravitation and time zones in detail with precision. Sanatan's covenants, time measurements, day and night, fortnight, and months, etc., are based on Moon's position and movement. Moon is described as signifier of feminine energy, of change in everything. Now, through the analysis and research of moon soft landing missions by the Western methodologies as well, it emerges that the experience of Moon's gravity is most peculiar amongst all the cosmic objects studied so far. And as depicted by ancient Sanatan knowledge system, it is variable too. The Sanatan wisdom knew all this and much more about the moon since eternity. We would explore some more of it in the forthcoming videos. The ancient astrology of Sanatan also majorly links life elements and experiences with the position of the moon in natal as well as transit horoscope. Its 120 years system of Vimshottari Mahadasha is calculated, begins and derives the time cycles of human life experiences by the position of the moon at the time of anyone's birth. Volume 2 of my book would discuss this divine knowledge at some length. Despite a huge number of moon missions, Western science has failed to discern how and to what extent the moon influences life and the elements that determine it. As against this, the ancient knowledge system of Sanatan, which is often misbelieved to be superstition and mere mythology, has always, since eternity, illuminated the horizons of its seekers on how the cosmos really worked down to its minutest level. Isn't that really amazing? If possible, please do remember that you first heard about the moon, other planets, sun and galactic influences on gravity, time zones and cosmic perturbations on the Science Beyond or through my book Cosmos and the Divinity. Please also do remember to like and share this video besides subscribing to the channel. We would sincerely attempt to bring new light on science through our original research. Thank you.